Thoughts and comments with Andrew Urquhart coming to you live from Waitangi and asking some big questions about what the Treaty of Waitangi means to us as a people and what it may mean as we move forward as a nation as well. Joining me on the program now from VisionWest, Brook Turner. Kia ora, thank you for your time today.
Thanks for having me, Andrew. Great to be here and at Waitangi.
Yeah, it's a wonderful place, a wonderful sense of celebration here. Now, the politicians are up at the treaty grounds having a debate and perhaps even an argument, but here, a wonderful carnival atmosphere. Just wanting to start with VisionWest, though, the work that you do working amongst disadvantaged families, particularly in West Auckland, and disproportionately a lot of families with a Maori heritage.
Yes, that's correct. So overwhelmingly, the majority of whānau that VisionWest work with are Māori and have a whakapapa into Māoridom, particularly in our housing services and our social services. And it's really important to us to understand our place as honouring Te Tiriti or Waitangi in our response to that. So we actually have a shared leadership model of operation now with Mātua Fred and our Chief Executive Lisa Woolley working together in partnership for better outcomes for Māori.
A practical example of what bicultural relationship looks like in that regard.
Absolutely.
For you personally though, Brook, what does Te Tiriti mean to you? Why is it important, do you think?
I think it's so fundamentally important because as tangata Te Tiriti, a person of the treaty who's non-Māori, you know, my tipuna actually were part of that agreement through the Crown, and we have obligations. And I liken it to, you know, when I signed that marriage document with my wife, that was a covenant with her to honour her, to respect her, to serve her, to support her. And likewise, the treaty was a covenant between Pākehā and Māori to prefer and support the aspirations of one another in our distinctive cultures for a better Aotearoa. And that's what's important to me. So I see myself as a participant in Te Tiriti or Waitangi and someone who is not at fault for some of the grievances from the past, but is responsible to do better.
Hey, a wonderful perspective to have in that regard. And as I say, there's a lot of debate at the moment. There's a lot of vigorous conversations, shall we say, about what the treaty means, what the principles are, and even different interpretations of terms, both in English and in Maori. Although one thing I think that most people would agree on is there's a disproportionate representation of Maori in some of the negative statistics, not just in West Auckland where you work, but nationally. And I think all people would agree that if our society is to move forward and be better, then we need to do something about the inequality within our society. We need better outcomes for Maori and for all of New Zealand.
Absolutely, and you know, it's often something that I find myself around the barbecue or over lunch or over dinner with friends talking about. It's like, you know, there is a narrative right now that's sort of almost perversely trying to paint this picture that there's privileges for Māori that Pākehā aren't afforded. And the truth is actually the reverse of that. You could look at every single metric from health, education, housing, right through, and we see it every day at VisionWest. Interestingly, we talk about the bounce back, so with a little bit of intervention, with a little bit of support, just like you would for your neighbour or the person down your street who's going through hardship, regardless of their ethnic background, you can see transformation happen there. But I do think with Māori as tangata whenua, people of the land, there is a special responsibility, and I believe a spiritual one, to uplift their aspirations, and so that's at the heart of what we do.
Is it good that we're having these conversations, that we're exploring what the treaty means for us as a nation and individually, do you think?
I think it is, and what I would encourage Pākehā New Zealanders to do is that often the conversation, particularly in the public arena, becomes Māori and the Crown, and there is actually the absence of the Pākehā voice. So I actually feel like there's a third voice that often goes unnoticed and it's often silent, and it's time for Pākehā to speak up and say, you know, what does the treaty mean for us? What does Te Tiriti mean for us? And how does that look? And, you know, for me, that's a journey that I'm on personally. It's a journey we're in at VisionWest, and it's a journey that is at the heart of our Christian mission to actually say, how do you love your neighbour? How do you actually give to whoever is in need in front of you and recognise the mana that is standing in front of you and the money you have to give as well.
Do you think the church, the Christian organisations also have something to say, something to contribute when it comes to defining or perhaps moving forward with the treaty and what it means for our future?
Look, I was at the tangihanga for the King at Tūranga Waiwai Marae, and it was so clear, and in the coronation of the Queen,
Yes.
I was absolutely compelled by the presence of Christianity and the honouring of the Christian faith in that place at that time with the kingitanga. And it's often something that I guess as, I don't know, Western or Pākehā Christians, we're not so familiar with. But Christianity has a real place within Māoridom, and it has a real place in the history of the treaty. And therefore we've got a place as Christians and as the Church of Aotearoa to stand by and with Māori and to look for those aspirations that actually honour, a lot of tikanga is about honouring the things that we're asked in Scripture to honour. Honour relationship, honour the kai, honour the whenua, honour the place, honour the kaumātua. So, I think we absolutely have a role to play.
And to do so with dignity and respect, certainly to do so with humility in this space as well. And this is certainly something which has impressed me, being at Te Tii Marae for all of this week here, just living in amongst this community, getting to know each other, having conversations about what we believe and what's important to us. This as a foundation for our nation moving forward, taking the time to talk to each other and not past each other. There's hope for the future there, Brook.
There's absolutely hope. And, I'd encourage the audience, think about planning a trip to Waitangi. You might not come on Waitangi Day, but, I remember, Andrew, growing up seeing the Hollywood movies, and in 2011 I finally got to go to Washington DC. I got to take a photograph of the White House and see the Capitol building and that sort of thing, and it was really cool. But in 2017, as a 37-year-old, I came to Waitangi for the first time. I went up to the upper grounds, I stood on the whenua there by the marae and by the flagpole, and something happened in my spirit, and I realised I was at the birthplace of a nation, and the nation in which I was born into, and it profoundly did something for my spiritual faith and for who I am as a person. And as a father, having my kids there, I looked at my son who was 7, and I said, man, he's here 30 years earlier than I was. And there's something profoundly special about this place. So I'd encourage everyone to engage with that. This isn't about the politicians. It's not about the public narrative that you might see on One News tonight. That's all important, and we all need to have that debate and have it with extraordinary respect and honouring the past and looking to how we can walk forward together. But equally, there's a personal connection here, like what we see behind us. That is just whanaungatanga, manaakitanga, aroha, and let's make sure that we engage with that too. So if you haven't been, we invite you to come.
No mai, haere mai. It is a wonderful place to be, and wonderful to have the privilege to be able to broadcast here from Te Tii Marae. Brook, thank you so much for the work you do. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much, Andrew.
Kia ora.
It's a pleasure.